Welcome back to the Gossip Factor, where we bring you the latest and most emotional celebrity news. In an emotional conversation, Shannon Amos, daughter of the legendary John Amos, shared the heartbreaking news of her father's passing. To honor his legacy, a public memorial will be held on November 23rd in East Orange, New Jersey, and for fans around the world, the event will be live streamed so everyone can pay their respects to the beloved star. Before we dive in, make sure to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to the Gossip Factor for more emotional updates and breaking news. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss a moment.
Shannon. Hi,
So
how are you?
before anything, I want to give you the proper space and say welcome. This is a welcoming space, a loving space. That's number one.
Thank you.
We want to send our condolences to you and the family.
Thank you.
I'm going to share something with Tanya before I get off, and make sure that she sends it to you because it's actually a little bit personal with me
Okay.
as well as it
Okay.
pertains to your dad.
Sure.
But I want to say first and foremost, condolences, and I want to welcome you here. And anything that you want to speak on, or anything, or you can let me set the stage. That is fine. It's totally on however way you want me to proceed with this. But how are you?
Okay. We're moving through. It's challenging to find the space to grieve because there's so many unanswered questions. My whole family is hurt, but we're also angry because we were not only kept away from my father for the last year of his life, but we're now learning about the last moments of his life. And it really didn't have to happen that way. And I think that's what's so devastating.
So, I mean, probably like you said, literally yourself. You found out on October 1st. Was it like through a news article or like a particular outlet that you heard it out on? Because I understand that you were actually in your students in your school. Am I correct?
No, that was my daughter, his
Oh, your daughter.
granddaughter.
Okay, okay, cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately, my granddaughter was at school when she found out. I was at home working, and an associate of my father's called and said, I've been trying to reach your dad, and you know your brother's always monitoring his calls, and I can't get through. And I'm really worried because I just heard news that he died. And in that moment, my heart kind of dropped. And I opened up Google, and the first thing I saw was the press release from my brother. And then as I continued to read the article, I saw August 21st, which is the day before my mother's birthday. And I just, I dropped to my knees. I was just like, how could he do this? How could anybody do this? And despite, anything going on between my brother and I, we have definitely had our issues. The media had really spun it like it was a sibling rivalry, and the thing was is it was so much deeper than that. That my brother had a lot to do with that sibling rivalry thing. That was a lot of what he created in his mind. I've tried to support my brother. I've tried to help my brother. He is an addict. He has mental health issues that he has not addressed, and he suffers from paranoid delusions and all kinds of other things. And um, but I don't know. I feel like he's a narcissist. I think that for him, this is a game, and the ultimate way to win this game was to keep me and our entire family in the dark. That, like, somehow that gave him power and control.
Mm. Wow. Before we get into any of the other aspects of this, I would like to give you the space to say, like, what did your father mean to you, like overall? If there's any
Oh,
wonderful
he,
things that you want to talk about your dad, I'd love to hear that.
Sure, sure. And I'll be fully transparent with you and your listeners. Me and my dad have had a complex relationship, as a lot of people do with parents, but we had profound love for each other. We're two very, always have been very strong headed people. So we would bump heads at times, but for the most part, my dad and I really loved each other. And he was such a huge light in my life. He had my back no matter what. He showed up for all the important moments. He was a tough father, but he was also had a huge heart. A lot of the work that he did, people don't even know about. He has a grandson, my daughter's stepbrother, who has cerebral palsy and autism. So he was very dedicated to working with children with disabilities. He was an advocate with Nelson Mandela during the apartheid movement, and he really instilled in us a sense of, do whatever it is that feeds your heart and your soul, like always walk in your purpose. And I think that was his greatest gift to us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Do you remember at any time as a youngin' growing up, ever being on any of these sets and any of those moments that you remember as
Well,
well?
I'm about to age myself, but I grew up with my dad on the sets of almost all his shows, and it started for
Wow.
me at about 4 years old on the set of the Mary Tyler Moore show. He used to drop me off next door at the what was the Leslie Uggams had a show, and there was another show that taped in All in the Family. It was a bunch of shows that taped in CBS. Oh, the Carol Burnett show. He
Mm.
used to drop me off in there and let me dance with the Carol Burnett dancers. And it was just like a little thing, and I'd have on my tap shoes, and he would let me play in there while he was taping Good Times.
Oh my God. I
Yeah.
shared this on Wednesday's show, and it's just so ironic how these things align. Um, in 2022, when we started the podcast, and actually we were just fledgling at that point, a friend of ours named Tommaso knows Paul, you know,
Oh, Paul
and
Balasari, my dad's
he,
manager. Yeah.
absolutely. And like I said, I'm gonna send it to Tanya to send to you. We was in correspondence. Talked to your dad one time in 2022. Shout out to Paul. Paul was arranging for us to do the show. He told us about him living in Colorado. You would probably know this better than anybody. In 2022, he had some procedure. He just said it in the message, but he didn't give me no details. He said he just had a procedure
Yeah.
done. I think he said something with his voice or something like
Okay.
that.
Okay.
And again, he's one of my heroes. So I want you to know that.
Thank
Um,
you.
and I'm probably saying that for a lot of people in here. Um,
Yes, yeah.
it
I
is
know his
often,
fans
mhm.
loved him. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
we
I know
loved
his
him.
fans loved
Yeah,
him.
we loved him. He was the father figure that we all looked to, and we all had, even if we didn't have that same father figure in our own household and stuff like that. So I just want you to know that that love is real. This is not something, predicated or made up in the media. It's real, and we loved your dad, and we're here to support you through any of this time that you may need. You know what I'm saying? So that's number one.
Thank you. Thank you.
Number two, what do you think next is going to happen? Then I want you to jump in, Vanessa, and tell about your family as well. Um,
Absolutely.
what's next on this thing? Because it sounds weird that it was 45 days exactly. You know what I'm saying? That this
Yes,
comes
yes.
out, and is it a money grab? Like, what are your thoughts on this? Like,
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, because my dad had been isolated and cut off from everyone, I mean, all of his family, his brother, Paul Balasari, who had been his manager of over 12 years, myself, his grandchildren, I mean, he was cut off from everyone. And it was my brother, along with two other people, a woman who was claiming to be his publicist, Belinda Foster, and a white gentleman by the name of Eugene Brummett. And we've since gone down his Facebook, and he seems to be a really weird QAnon conspiracist theorist, and a lot of racial trope stuff on his Facebook, which was really, scary and disheartening, knowing that these were the people that were around my dad in his final days. But they worked together to isolate my father. And I was actually notified back in, I think it was December, from Dr. Sherilyn Lee, who had treated Michael Jackson um, during his trial. Not the one that was, incarcerated, but another one. And she was put in contact with me through an acquaintance. And she said, Shannon, I was called to your dad's place, and he's been horribly neglected. She said he's in congestive heart failure. His body is swollen beyond belief, and he was unclean and unkept. And you know, I won't go into much further details, but I can tell you it was horrific. And
right,
she had pretty much told them, if you don't get him to a hospital, I'm gonna call the police or whatever she said. Like, she scared them.
right.
They didn't take him to the hospital. They took him to a podiatrist to treat his foot, which had been infected with maggots because they
Oh my
had
God.
left an open wound unclean. And they got that situated and brought him back to the house. And then I guess a week or so later, he was so sick they had no choice but to take him to the hospital. So they took him to Cedars-Sinai, and I got a tip from someone at Cedars, and I flew out immediately. And when I got there, my brother had, I guess, got my dad to sign some power of attorney, and I couldn't get in the hospital.
Oh
And
man.
this has been a pattern with my brother. My dad, what a lot of people don't realize is as articulate and as smart as he is, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and dementia in 2016.
Mm.
However, he kind of bounced back, and he would continue to bounce back. We always say my dad has like 13 lives or something, but right before the time you said you were about to talk to him in 2022, the procedure was actually, he had had a stroke while he was in Ireland. He
Oh,
was
that's what it is.
filming with Pierce Brosnan, and my brother didn't tell anyone. We found out because of production. The production company contacted Paul Balisari, and I said, "Here we go again," And it's not our first rodeo with my brother. He did the same thing to my mother. He isolated her, he neglected her, and the hardest thing is that we have gone through law enforcement, social services, adult protective services, and my brother is so good at what he does is that he just continuously would move my father from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So every time we would get a case open and they'd start to investigate, he'd pack my father up and move him to another hotel. And we highly suspect wrongdoing because it was Belinda, the quote-unquote publicist, Gene, this grifter, and my dad and my brother all living in a hotel room. And, we would find their locations through TikTok, call the police, fly in. And, I spent months, and I can't tell you how much money on attorneys in different states trying to get a conservatorship, trying to get my dad into proper care. And these three people were able to get into a hospital in New Jersey. They had pretty much brainwashed my dad that the family was going to put him away in some kind of nursing home and he would never see his son again. And my dad bought it and he signed himself out of the hospital, and we haven't seen him since.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Um, is there? I heard there was a report on this that your brother wasn't even in the hospital with him in the last days.
No, and how we found out was my daughter was so outraged. She called immediately, started calling hospitals, and somehow she called the right hospital. And the woman that answered said, "Well, he came in with his daughter, and she dropped him off, but that was it. I know her name was Belinda Foster, and my daughter lost it. She was like, that's not his daughter." And so that same publicist was claiming to be me, dropped him off at that hospital. And then I'm on the shade room or looking at social media somewhere, and I see a woman post that her daughter was working in the ER the night my dad died. And and in the post she said, "I don't understand why his daughter was the only one there and left him, left him." Her daughter was
Oh
hurt by
man.
the fact that she left him and that there were no other family members there. And then she said, "Why would the daughter wait 45 days?" And I'm like, I'm not that person. I wasn't there. I live in Mexico. I didn't even know he was there.
Oh my
So,
God. Is there
yeah,
any
yeah.
legal recourse at this point? Even if I know your brother's kind of trying to do anything underhanded to kind of block different things, has there been a will out there yet? Do you know about a will at all,
Well,
or any of that stuff?
there's so many
Hmm.
challenges around that because my
Yeah.
brother, we have about 5 wills because my brother would get my dad, isolate him. When people have dementia, like during the day in the morning, they're sound, they can be sharp as a bell, but at night he was usually sundowning, and that's when you would really see that he wasn't well. He'd repeat himself a lot, he would do strange
Mm.
things. And it was in those vulnerable moments my brother would take my dad, get him to sign some documents. And so between my uncle, myself, and other family members, I mean, we have 5 wills. Like my brother would constantly undo the wills.
Oh wow.
And so we pretty much believe, even before my father passed, I had this like inkling that he's going to die, he's going to get him cremated before the family can do any kind of investigation or autopsy, and he's going to go and put everything in his name. And 45 days is like just enough time. It takes about 2 weeks or so, or 3 weeks to get back your death certificates. And, you know, at that point, he probably cashed any insurance policies or whatever he had, and made sure that he moved things in a way that nobody else in the family would have access.
That's oh my God.
Yeah.